Everybody, welcome to another episode of the Self-Aware Millennial Podcast. I am your bliggity black host, J.Mix. On this episode, we are talking about detaching love from sex, which is very timely right now in my life because, well, we'll talk about it later. But let me talk about why this is an important discussion. So detaching love from sex, for some people, can be considered a gift, because it can save a lot of heartbreak and hurt feelings if you're like able to accomplish like doing this like without really like thinking about, I mean, I feel like it's a practice. It's honestly a practice. Like it, well, maybe it's not. I don't know. We'll talk about it. They can also come across as insensitive, however, because I feel like, I think some people, when they go into maybe casual relationships where maybe they're looking for love, but the other person isn't, and like those boundaries aren't necessarily communicated. And so the ability for, let's say, the person that's looking for something a little bit more casual to detach love from it, I don't know. It does seem like, at least from one person's perspective, it could be insensitive, depending on who has more love for the other person. I think it sometimes be imbalanced. But I think it's important for us to acknowledge at least the whys and the hows of just how this all works. So that's why I'm really happy to have my two guests for this episode, because I feel like they have, I mean, we all have knowledge about it, but I think it's important to have perspective from different walks of life. So I have my guests, Anjle and Ben, joining me. Say hey, y'all.
Hi.
Hello there.
Hi. Oh goodness. We're taping this in like the middle of the afternoon, and so like it's, I don't know, I'm not used to doing it at this time, and it's completely fine. Like I'm obviously still chipper and stuff, but I could just feel, how you just have that grogginess of like 3 p.m., 2 p.m., 4 p.m. Like, it's
earlier you said this was like nap time, and I was like, I don't normally, and I thought about it, and when I was younger, like there was a very brief window after school before everyone else got home, like from work and school, that I only had like, I don't know, like maybe half an hour alone. And it was like the best part of my day because it was so quiet, and I would take a nap.
So are you like
normally
wait, what'd you say, Ben?
Normally this is the time I get off of work, so I just got off of work before recording this, and I'm about to go on vacation, so I'm just like relaxing now, and I'm in that mode. The day you get off of work that you don't have to go back in for 6 more days, and it's just I'm riding that high right now, so I'm doing great.
I'm like, so I mean, I'm jealous, but I think it's just because my work schedule is not like I go to work and then I come back and relax. Like I now work from home, so it's hard to have that. But Ben, let's talk about like what you do, like who you are, what are your hobbies, like give us what you want us to give us. You don't have to give us everything.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Ben, and where do I start? So I work a boring office job. I'll start off with the boring part. I work a boring office job in finance for a health insurance company in the Northeast. So that's why I have a pretty regimented schedule, even though I do work from home. I also got a degree in music, so I'm a musician as well. I play a bunch of different instruments, and I like to perform whenever we're not in a pandemic. And yeah, I'm also very involved in the gay bear and leather community in the Northeast. So I'm a gay 25-year-old who is still out exploring himself and the world around him, and doing that with other people and other friends that he's found throughout I'm talking in third person, that I'm finding in life to explore with me. That's why I felt like I really wanted to talk about it.
I got a question for you. Yeah. Okay. So for some people that are listening to this, I just hit the microphone. For people that are just listening to this for the first time, don't know what, the gay bear leather community is. Can you give like try to give a brief description of what
Sure.
it is?
stereotypical gay male represented in media, generally slim, very flamboyant sort of thing. Gay Bear was brought up in the 90s to combat that stereotype of what you would see in media, and now show that gay men can be of any size. And this especially attracted the bigger, more masculine, hairy men that you would see that are still very comfortable in their own sexuality. Leather has been around even before that as a way to show queer space in, especially combined with kink. And in that, events and communities have formed around it.
That's perfect. That was a perfect description. Thank you.
No
I just went to a Gay Bear community. Actually, so here in New Orleans, there's one called Phoenix on Legion Fields. I never been there before. I went there for like the first time, like 2 nights ago, and I was like, "This is giving me Gay Bear leather vibes." Like I just went in, like I didn't know, but I was like, "Yeah." And then you had like a whole like store where you could buy like, you know, tools. And
it sounds similar to like an Eagle anywhere else. The Eagle is the prominent gay bear leather, the gay leather bar that you would find in most cities. There's one in Atlanta, or there used to be. There's one in New York. There's one in Baltimore. So it seems similar to that in New Orleans.
Nice. Yeah. Well, thankfully we have a great little community here. And obviously you probably knew that you're going to be here soon anyway. So, but the second question I had, because you have like, I don't know, I love to, you said you did music. You said you played multiple instruments, but do you sing?
I kind of sing. I took voice lessons in college while I was getting my degree, and I enjoy it. It's not what I'm most proficient in, but I enjoy it.
You have a timbre that really screams like tenor.
I'm a tenor too, so I guess so.
My ears were right. Okay, well, thanks for giving me a little summary of who you are. Anjle. Oh yeah, go ahead, Anjle.
Can I ask a question? What instruments do you play?
So I got my main degree in saxophone, mostly classical. Which is a weird thing. You don't usually hear classical with saxophone. But I was not a jazz person. But then I also went in with trombone as my secondary.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice. Well, all right, Anjle. Let them know. Tell them who you is.
Hi. I am Anjle. I'm a queer, trans, like agender, non-binary. I don't know. The best descriptor for my experience of my own gender is system error 404, file not found. It's been that way forever. I'm just like, I'm more open about talking about it over time and more accepting of that with myself over time, even though I've always known. It's fine, whatever. I'm a multidisciplinary artist based in New Orleans. I'm from New Orleans. I do burlesque, drag, improv. I am a classically trained opera singer.
Yes.
Before recording this, I was practicing arias for a opera like variety show that I co-produced with some friends. So
it's on Friday, right?
Yes.
On Friday,
Friday.
Yeah. I might check it out.
Yeah, so there's like burlesque, drag, opera, sideshow. Like we try to like drag whatever. It depends on who's available and what people are doing, what they're working on, and their schedules. But yeah, I am high risk for COVID because I am also I've got like health things and disability things that I'm. So over the last like this whole thing, I'm like, I'm just going to be more open about talking about that. Just being like, hey, you probably maybe didn't know this, but this is just a thing that I've been living with the whole time. Surprise. Yeah. And so I've spent most of COVID like completely alone. So I have like a housemate, but they like went to stay with family for like half a year. They're like very introverted and like a hermit, and their schedules are usually different. So usually like, it's not a roommate where you're like, oh, you want to share dinner or watch a movie together? It's just, I don't know. Y'all
have different schedules and you probably don't ever really see each other.
No.
Ever.
Yeah, so it's been like an interesting COVID time. It's given me a lot of time to reflect on relationships and myself and do some like self-healing time because had a lot of time to do that. And when you're by yourself, stuff's just going to come up because you're with yourself all the time. And there's nothing, there weren't really the usual distractions of daily life, but I think it was good, hopefully. I don't know. I also worked a lot in my youth. So
Yes.
a lot of the, I feel like I just like didn't have a lot of the I'm in college or I'm in my 20s, like experiences people did, which like some of it's fine and I'm fine without that. And some of it's I'm like,
Wait, so you're not in your 20s?
No.
Oh. Okay, so I mean, you're still a millennial though. Like
yes,
Ben
yes.
is like the youngest of the millennial. Okay.
Yep.
I'm an older millennial.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I'm the younger one for sure.
Yeah, but like I don't know, a lot of stuff I'm like, do I know what I even like in like sex and relationships? And then a friend was like, you do, because I know some things you do. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I don't know. I guess I'm excited for like after COVID times to like explore that more now that I have like a more solid, like, yeah, this is just me.
Yeah, you know what you like, at least at that point, and you know that it could have easily, as you get older, change.
Yeah.
You know, bodies don't stay the same. They're going to evolve as, you know, time evolves. I feel like we all at least know that much. And this is actually a great segue into kind of what we're going to be talking about today, which is going to be detaching sex from love. But before we kind of go into that, I wanted to have like a couple of icebreaker questions for both of you. So the first question I was just curious about, because we were talking about love and sex, I'm going to talk about the love part. So if y'all would like to, whoever wants to go first, it doesn't have to be a long story, but I want you to describe or tell me a story about your first love, just like kind of like how you felt and what made you think it was love. And yeah, we'll go from there. Everyone's looking in the sky, like trying to think.
Yeah,
I mean, I could go.
You
All
go.
Right.
Go ahead, Anjle.
I'll go. So you had sent like some questions before this, so we could like be prepared. And I like glanced at them, but didn't like preform things. But this was the first one. I was like, oh boy, okay, I'm just gonna ruin it right off the bat. So this has like I was thinking about this, and there's like 3 possibilities for who like my first love was.
That's interesting.
Because I'm like, what does that really mean?
What is love?
Maybe you'll tell me.
Maybe you'll tell me.
I don't know. So I thought I was in love with someone I dated in college. But really that was just like my first longish relationship. And like I was like all in. They were very much not so. It was also very unhealthy and like abusive and bad.
Sorry.
Yeah. But you know, like I was like very committed to the relationship and the person I was dating. And it was like the first person I had sex with, which didn't really matter to me, but that just was a fact.
That was literally the second question I was going to ask about.
Okay.
Like, if the first person.
Well, I'll save that. Let's teaser.
Okay.
And then there was someone this is all college. And then there was someone that I met in college that I was like, oh, I'm in love with this person. But then I'm like, I don't know what that means. And it was very much like this is someone that I just care about and care for and like want the best for, even if that means like I'll never like person's not going to be in my life. Whatever happened, I don't know, just loved them. So I guess that was like an unconditional love kind of thing.
Yeah.
I was also confusing because we were both 2 femme people who weren't out as queer at the time. And I was like, oh, well, I love this person and I care a lot about them, but like they're not queers, but like I'm happy that we can have like a good friendship and then they can get like sex and love from like boys that they're dating. that's great. They have it covered.
Yeah. I find that that's still considered love. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's like a kind of love. And the other person was also in college, near the end of college, and it was just I don't know, a friend that I just loved. And then at some point I was like, oh, I love this person. Okay. And then I was like, all right, I'm not going to tell people. I'm not going to tell them. It was not a situation in which like I felt it was necessary to tell them. And I think I felt at the time would have complicated a serious relationship that they were in.
Gotcha.
And I don't know if they were in like open to open relationships or polyamory or not, but their partner definitely was not. And I was like, I'm not, I care about both of these people and I'm not going to like, I don't need anything from this. I just, cool. I can love people and trust again. This is good after the first one.
Yeah. So you never said anything to this third person?
No. And sometimes I'm like, did they know? Like they had to have known, but I didn't say it like in plain words. So I don't know.
Well, maybe.
I think it was embodied in the relationship that we had.
Okay.
Yeah. It was like a very loving friendship.
Okay.
But,
Oh, well, thank you for your 3 answers. Wow. And what about you, Ben?
I also have 3 answers because I'm gonna follow this up with saying that I am a gay male, but I definitely dated women before I dated men. Just because that's the heteronormative thing to do. So my first long-term relationship, and I still don't know if I can call it love. A lot of these are actually pretty similar to Anjle's. The first long-term relationship, I don't know if I would call it love, was with someone in high school. It's that puppy love that you kind of get when you find someone you just kind of connect with, and you're around a lot, and you work with each other, and you're happy to be together. It eventually fell apart when we started to develop and grow, and things didn't necessarily work out. And I eventually broke up with her and moved on. Second one, this is probably the most difficult one for me because she is still my best friend to this day. We talk every single day. We dated for our last year of high school into college. And by that point, and this is kind of mixing into question 2, it was around this time I started to develop sexual feelings like at all. So some people some people get it from a super early age. I was a very late bloomer in terms of actually getting feelings of sexuality. I didn't know what sexuality really was. I never got it until I started developing, but it wasn't for the sex or gender that I was dating at the time.
Yeah.
So it was really confusing. And I knew at some point in our freshman year of college, when we were going to 2 different colleges and making a long distance thing work, that like I'm missing something right now. And we had to break up, and I broke up with her, felt really bad about it, wanted to get back together. We did for like a week, and then she's like, I can't do this. Like, and then she broke up with me. And overall, it worked out really well to our benefit. Because a few months later I did realize I was gay, and that breaking up is what I needed to kind of push myself to really find who I was. I still loved her. I still love her to this day in terms of being a friend. She is my best friend, and I would do nothing. There's almost nothing I wouldn't do for her, but we wouldn't be able to work romantically anymore. And that kind of leads into my first boyfriend, who I met at college. I definitely fell for. Had a lot of similarities to my best friend, in my opinion. But as a guy and someone who I was physically attracted to, and it was great. I felt like we connected in a lot of ways. And it worked for about 9-10 months before things started to go apart because of the sexual nature of how things went with me. And that's when I started to realize that even if you can work really well personally with someone and develop a good friendship, that doesn't mean you're always going to be the most romantic partners. If you have different ideas of what you want, monogamy versus polyamory, and different between open and closed relationships, both of which you need to find a partner that works well in those regards if you want to make a stable relationship work. And that was my big lesson. So even though I did love him, I needed to discover myself.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
3 parts.
Yeah. So what I'm getting here from both of your stories is that love is a lot more complicated. I think that a lot of people the feelings of love, we think it's usually the first person. Love, in terms of like what we know love to be, sometimes takes a couple of loves before you realize what it is. Like it kind of just sneaks up on you, right? So
love is so much more complicated than sex.
I think there's different kinds too.
Yep. So that's what I was also going to mention. I believe the Greeks or the Romans or something had like 6 or different words for love.
Yeah,
and I really wish it's not enough, but it's so much better than what English has in the word. Just trying to combine all of this to the word love.
Yeah, I think love is a good shorthand to be like, this person is very important to me in some way, but it doesn't give like the context for that importance or that meaning or that connection or whatever's there. Unless you actually have a full conversation.
It doesn't distinguish between familial versus romantic versus friendship versus lust versus all of these different things that love as a concept is grouped into right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's in case y'all, I just googled it because some of the people know the Greeks, but it's like eros, philia, storge, agape, ludus, pragma, and fellatio. I can't pronounce it. I'm gonna put it in the show notes, everybody. Cool. So the second question I have for y'all, is which kind of ties into the first, and this doesn't have to be a long answer or anything, but was the first person that you had sex with, like, was that the right question? Hold on. That's not it. Hold up. That's the question.
Did you fall in love with the first person you had sex with? Yeah.
Yeah. Did you fall in love with the first person you had sex with? Okay.
I'll take this one first. So technically, yes, because I kind of fell for him as we like in the process. We had sex. He was the first person I had sex with. It was the third guy from my love talk. I never actually ended up having sex with either of my first 2 girlfriends. So the first person I ever had sex with was my first boyfriend, and it was good to start exploring, but it didn't go far enough for me. So
okay. Yeah. I see.
Kind of.
That's very interesting because, like, again, this is your first person and you're like, I know I want more. And
it took months to figure that out. It was great at the beginning, but when you realize that I'm polyamorous, I know this, and it's innate in me and has been for years at this point. But when you're starting to learn that, like, I need an open relationship and a polyamorous relationship to be able to really function correctly. Having sex with one person at the beginning, it's my first time, is great, but then you start to develop, and like that started to show our rifts kind of early on. Was I'm talking to this guy, we had just we've been together a couple months, and I asked, how do you feel about open relationships? And he's like, what? We've just started dating. And I'm like, but how do you feel? And it's
you're like, it's relevant.
Yeah, like
maybe not now, but
yeah. And I think that was when I realized that maybe my concept of sexual relations between people isn't the same as others, where like I said before, sex is, in my opinion, easy compared to love. Sex is an action, love is a commitment.
I think sex can be a commitment if you commit to it, but it takes work. That's what I'm looking for. But very similar to what you said. So, and like the first like long relationship that I had in college, where like I thought that I was in love with a person, I think like I did love him, but the love was like from me. It wasn't because of the relationship we had or like inspired by him. And I think like as I've gotten older, I've gotten better at like, I distinguish between like, I love this person and I am in love with this person.
Yes.
Because I can love people who don't love me or who don't, you know, I don't have a relationship with or whatever. Like it's just something about what I perceive in that person's existence or like something about the relationship we have or something like brings out things in myself that I love. So the love I'm experiencing is like me seeing parts of myself reflected back at me from this other person. And so I loved this person because like I was, I don't know, really excited about the relationship and like being like vulnerable in new ways and like, I don't know, just showing up as my full self. So that love was there, but I was not in love with him, which took me a while to figure out. I definitely was like very attracted to familiar things in our relationship that turned out to be like not great. Like, oh, these are like toxic things from my childhood that I'm subconsciously excited about and attracted to because it's being like, this is a thing in our relationship. And then later I'm like, wait, this is bad. And then like much later, like a decade later, I was like, oh, that makes sense. It was familiar and comfortable. And that's how love was shown to me in other ways when I was younger. And I was like, yeah, this is love. This is what I learned. And then I was like, no, it's bad. Like it could, maybe it's love, but it's like not what I want. Ultimately.
It's a different type of love. Yeah. So that's so interesting. What part of your life did y'all learn to separate love from sex? Like when were you like,
it started for me when near the end of that third relationship, the first guy I had sex with, when I started to explore and I needed to find my own path and stuff. I needed to find people that I could explore with in a sexual way that wasn't necessarily romantic, that I couldn't get from that first relationship. So that's when it began, and it's still an ongoing process for me to this day. And I mean, that's been 5 years at this point. So still coming. It's still being processed in my brain necessarily, but I have a much better grasp than me 5 years ago dating this guy that I had no idea where it could lead. And I've been through multiple relationships since then and still am learning how to detach love from sex so that I don't feel jealousy when like my partners go off and play with them, like with other people. And because in the bear and leather community, that's a common thing, is where you'll see people hooking up all the time, and there are events specifically for it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you still have that internalized jealousy sometimes of being like, well, why isn't that me? When instead, maybe the best way to think about it is, I'm happy for them that they're getting pleasure right now.
Right. Yes.
Yep. So sorry, that kind of took off on a tangent, Anjle.
No, that's great. That's perfect for what I was going to say.
Yeah.
They have always been separate for me, which I was like worried about when I was younger. I was like, am I some kind of sexual sociopath? Can I feel feelings? Why is this separate for me? And I think it's fine. I'm somewhere on the asexual spectrum, I think, or maybe I just like experience like love and attraction and relationships differently than what like I was told it was supposed to be like, or from what a lot of other people relate to. But like, I don't know, I feel like I'm finding like more and more people that relate to my own experience. I'm like, okay, cool. This is nice. So when I was younger, I was like, okay, if you're married to someone and you want to have sex with someone else, why don't you go to the person that you're married to and you're like, hey, I'm really interested in trying sex with this person. Like, I think that would be fun. And the person married to is like, hell yeah, go for it. And then you high five and then you like separate and do the thing. Like,
yeah.
Or
and
like,
then you come home afterwards and they're like, how'd it go? And you're like, well, yeah. Like,
I know like not everyone that's polyamorous like is like different people have different boundaries in their own relationship and what they want to know and how involved they want to be with stuff too, which is totally fine. But like the person number 2 of Was That Love, young me, I don't know. Like we never had like a physical or sexual relationship, but like they would date other people and be like, good, I'm so happy that like you have this thing covered since we don't do this thing. And I want you to have all your bases covered, however that works. Like, and the word for like being happy for like in like, have you heard of compersion?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we went over it. Actually, you know Dylan. Dylan Tran.
Mm-hmm.
I'd had a non-monogamy for dummies episode that we did like last year, and we talked about compersion.
Yeah, like even if this like goes back to like high school, like me and my best friend in high school would have crushes on the same boys sometimes, and if he like flirted with me one week, she'd be like, oh my God, he's in love with you. It's gonna happen. And I'd be like, oh my God, do you think so? And she's like, yeah. And then if he like flirted with her the next week, I'd be like, it wasn't me, we were wrong. It's you, go get him. Like, it was just like ridiculous.
That is so cute.
But I don't know.
Thought about compersion that way. Oh, by the way, listeners that are just listening for the first time, compersion in the non-monogamy world is basically when like you and a partner that you're, or like someone that you are like friends with, or I guess in this term, interested in, is like going for someone else that is not you, and you feel happy for them, and like if they actually, someone that's outside of you in another relationship, and you see that they're like getting it, whatever, and you get really,
you feel innately happy instead of that jealousy feeling that you're kind of you grow up with.
Yes,
that's what you're
taught. You're told you're supposed to feel.
Instead of that jealousy feeling, compersion's the opposite. It's the innate. It's the opposite of jealousy, in my opinion.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
As a shorthand.
My ex had it, and while I know I don't necessarily have it, I know how to at least tone down the jealousy to get to a happy medium of just feeling good and kind of moving on, because it's not innate in everyone, neither of which is innate in anyone. It's all about how you're raised, in my opinion, and it's training yourself to back off of the extremes to get to some sort of middle ground sometimes.
In a lot of instances with me and relationships I've had over the years, and there's been situations where I have been very displeased, but I wouldn't I feel like jealousy is maybe not the correct word, but because there's just so much attached to what you assume about what's happening with that word. But like my problems or like instances in which I like was jealous or was upset, like didn't have to do with like, oh, I think that this person is, what was it? Like jealousy is like, this person is,
do you find that jealousy? Okay, so
no, there's two things, like jealousy and envy, and one of them is like jealousy is like I own this thing and someone else is messing with it, and envy is like I should have this thing, like you have something that should be for me, and jealousy is like this is mine.
I feel that so much, but because I literally went through the exact same thing recently, and I had to realize that it wasn't jealousy, it was definitely envy. But it was coming from my insecurities because I couldn't get that. Woo! Go ahead, Anjle.
A lot of stuff for me, though, has been like a boundary has been crossed. Or like I tried to date someone who was already partnered. a bit back, and I don't think that we wanted the same things, but I think it took our failed relationship for me to realize that through conversations with her being like, what is going on? This is not adding up. And I think there was a lot of like misunderstanding of like her thinking I was jealous of time she was spending with her boyfriend. I'm like, no, I think that's great. I think it's important that you spend quality time together. I care about both of you. Like, please do that. Also, though, I told you like I needed this thing in our relationship, and you've been neglecting that. And that's the problem. The problem is not that you're doing this and I don't want you to do it. The problem is that you're not even addressing things that I've brought up with us.
Right.
Or like something like would blatantly show that like things that I had brought up were not considered or listened to.
But would you say that you would say like in most relationships, or at least your relationships, because some people go by like a hierarchical standard where you have your primary, then your secondary. So like secondaries necessarily don't always get like everything that they want when they ask for it. So you're saying, that's how some people.
Yeah, no, I know.
But I wouldn't. I'm like, I want everyone to get what they need out of it. And I hate that we have to prioritize.
I feel like it's important to acknowledge when there's like what is hierarchical, but also like saying this is my primary, this is my secondary, but like
they have like, to yes, agree that's to those true, terms.
But also like I think it's important to acknowledge what the relationships are and where they're at and be honest about that.
Yes.
But I think that like that's like a grown-up version of like, well, you're my best friend and I can only have one best friend. And I'm like, what?
Yes.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Ben?
So I want to address hierarchical relationships because I'm kind of in one right now. And I feel like this might help any listeners that haven't necessarily, this will help kind of ground them. So I have 3 boyfriends, 2 of which I'm moving in with in November. Currently where I'm recording from their house. And then I have another boyfriend who lives in Philly with his husband. So there's a slight hierarchy to this where like the 2 I'm moving in with have importance to me. We're a family, we're a triad. They're a married couple that have me as their cub, like, and that's important to me to have this understanding that the 3 of us are a family. And then my other boyfriend, who lives in Philly with his husband, knows that we have a romantic connection and we love being together and spending time with each other. But we also know innately it's never going to be more than that. We don't necessarily want it to be more than that. We like where it's currently at, and we're not trying to push any boundaries with it. So I think that's sometimes what you can get with a hierarchical relationship where communication is expressed about, exactly where you stand with these people and like what the goals down the line are. So my boyfriend in Philly and I know that we are happy where we are. He's still allowed to go and explore. He has like 5 boyfriends and I'm just one of them, and we make time for each other, and we know that we're still romantically connected even if we don't see each other all the time. So that's the kind of thing where a hierarchical relationship that has important communication can really work, where everyone gets what they need out of it because you've communicated your needs in such a way that they don't conflict.
Yes. And I kind of want to like share a little bit about the like me dating a couple that like, or one person in a couple that did not work. Because there were like she very explicitly said like I don't do primary, secondary, and I'm like, but this and this thing that you said is like exactly that, which is fine. But I was like, I can't treat you like a primary partner if we don't have that with each other, which is okay. But like, I was like, I can't invest a lot into, like, I can't invest in the same way into the relationship just on one end that's not going to be reciprocated. So that was a big part of the issue.
Yep. And it's that lack of reciprocating
Yeah. And I was like fine
the
with like,
communication.
this is your primary, you live together, you've been dating for a few years, like that makes total sense. But yeah, I think there was a gap in understanding of like how the relationship dynamics could maybe have worked and the communication that needed to happen. But
yeah. Well, this is perfect because this goes into kind of the topic of discussion I wanted to talk about in our grand discussion about detaching sex from love. Because I think that at least right now, I don't know, I've been around a bunch of people that have been giving different definitions of what these things are. So basically, like a friends with benefits versus a casual relationship versus like an acquaintance relationship. Is it all just subjective? Like, because like I feel like at least within those three things I find, or I mean friends with benefits, but buddies, like all of it, like it's all kind of morphed in there. So like when people are saying they want specific things, like unless you are completely 100% specific on what it is, like people can think that it's a grand scheme of all of that. I don't know. My brain, like just thinking about it, I'm like, yo, because what I thought a casual relationship is with like, it would very much be more along the lines of like, I don't know. Honestly, you know what? I don't know. I want to talk to y'all about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't know. I thought when casual relationship comes up, I don't think love, I don't think romance at all. I think it's just like
a fuck
buddy with maybe like every time, like you may like be your friend, you may like go do like friendly things every now and then, but not like every day or like you know, like all the time. So what do y'all think? Like, what do you think in terms of, so let's start with friends with benefits. Let's talk about what you think that is.
So labels in and of themselves, friends with benefits, casual acquaintances, are all defined by the user. So everyone still has their own internal definition of what that means. And that's why sometimes being explicit with what those means when you're talking about them is super important in the communication aspect of defining the relationship you have with someone.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
When would you define that? Do you define that right off the bat, or do you have to define that later on? Like
personally, I define things pretty early on because that's how I function. I function as someone who likes labels, and people don't like labels. Labels have gotten a rap of being forced upon people, and that's not how labels should work. Labels should work in an internal catalog in your brain to help you organize stuff, and then if you use it outside of your own brain and into somebody else, it has to be accepted and consented to. Yes. So that's when it's when you're willing to give a label to it that you have to talk to the person you're giving a label to and define it for them and see if they're willing to accept it. Not always in those explicit terms, but enough that you're telling them, this is why I would call you that if somebody ever asked, that has the right to know.
Ooh, that's a better way of putting it. Like saying like, how would you describe me to other people? Like, I think that would make it so much easier for them to at least set like what you'll understand what their boundaries are by what they say to that.
Yep. I was just having a conversation with my bears last night about how would you describe, I was talking to the younger one, how would you describe me to your mother? Like, how would you describe you as a 42-year-old male who in your mother's in her late 60s, like how would you describe me, your 25-year-old boyfriend, to your mother? And we had a discussion about that. And like that's the kind of stuff we need to talk about, because maybe she doesn't need to know that he's dating a 25-year-old on the side of with his husband, because they're both dating me. So it's the label was talked about and consented to, and we're like, all right, if it ever comes up, that's what we'll go with. But it doesn't need to be broadcast. So then going back to what you were saying about friends with benefits and casual and acquaintances, it's all user defined. Friends with benefits to me is someone who you are legitimately friends with, but you also are willing to get together and just fuck. Like actually have sex with them, in intimate time with them, cuddle afterwards maybe, but like know that you're not doing it for romantic pleasure necessarily, but really you're just there to have a good time and grow your friendship. And well, then casual relationships are more just you're there to fuck, and you're not there to grow anything. You're there to fulfill your body's needs. Yes. So and then there's a range of stuff in between that.
But you're right, it is defined by the user and whatever they are looking for. And if things change along the lines, it's up to them to communicate that in case that is a boundary one person can't, it can't be crossed.
Yep. So boundaries are so important when talking about labels. And I think that's why when people say, oh, I don't do labels, I was like, I don't think you do labels in a healthy way then.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I think like labels can be really helpful because then you can find other people with similar experiences to talk to, to be like, what's similar, what's different, and get like a deeper understanding for yourself. That way, I think it's like a good like shorthand or like general guide, but it should never be taken as like, I know exactly what you mean based on this word or this phrase.
Exactly, because most of these words that we're saying again are subjective, and you in the end have to find out like what their form of whatever this is, which is why I asked y'all this question.
And they change from like region too, and like they have different cultural significance in different areas for different reasons too. So
So how do you maintain not falling for the person you're having sex with?
Oof. Oh, you're hitting the hard question.
I'm fine. I don't know.
for me, maybe.
Well, like this kind of ties back to.
I'm asking this for myself too, because I'm still trying to figure it out. That's why I have to like, at least for me, and if I'm seeing someone a lot, I am prone to fall for them. So I have to like set a boundary or like find like something. I have to define like when I can see them. Like I would love to see them every day, but I know that's gonna put me in the deep end. Good. Yeah, it's like the relationship energy. Yeah. And I just go ahead.
I don't really, or I have not yet had a problem with this. Because like this goes back to like friends with benefits versus casual relationships. Like when I was younger, I was like, are friends with benefits, is that real? Because I feel like a lot of people use that, but meant casual relationship, or we're like, this is someone I'm sleeping with, but would also have lunch with, versus someone I'm just sleeping with and would not have lunch with. Exactly. And I was like, that still doesn't mean that you're like friends.
Yeah.
So I called that sexy friends when I was younger, because I was like, we are friends. The friendship is first, but sometimes we're sexy together. And there was not like romantic or like sexual love tied to that, because that wasn't an aspect that was there in the friendship anyway. Like it already like wasn't there. So far that's been okay. I think if it was like a friend that I was attracted to, that maybe I'd be in trouble. If it was a friend and we were attracted to each other, but we didn't want to date, that might be troublesome as well. But that hasn't happened yet.
Have you ever found that in terms of when you're having sex with someone, if the sex is good, you're more prone to fall in love with them?
No.
Okay. I'm just curious. I'm just asking. I'm asking these. Yeah. These are not on the outline. I'm just like,
curious.
No, that's a great question.
Like I might want to do it again,
especially if it's like consecutively good every single time. It's like, whew. But I don't know.
I will say that I am on the opposite end of their answer, where I have a bad habit of falling for people that I have sex with. And it's something that I'm still learning, and this is definitely still part of my growing process of figuring out what boundaries mean in terms of things. I definitely I hurt myself, and I don't want to say they hurt me because they didn't do anything. I was the one that put it upon myself to think that I could make someone that could handle this burden when I really couldn't, of having having sex with someone one time, but then knowing them and being friends with them, I'm like, I really like them, and knowing that they're not interested in a poly relationship at all. Like they like me as a friend, and that's it. Like a friend and a friends with benefits, and that's it. But I put the burden upon myself to kind of hold that and be like, hey, it's fine, I'll deal with it later, and then that was bad. So like there's a thing that you have to go through sometimes when you're realizing you're falling for someone. Like, is this personally actually available, from like emotionally available to have me in their life? And you need to kind of sit down and think about that, because that's when you realize if you need to set a boundary or not. If you're having sex with someone and you're not asking that question of, are they emotionally available for me, then you don't need to worry about it. Actually, you don't have to worry about setting a boundary, because you're not in danger of crossing anything there. Like I have a friends with benefits that every time we get together, we have a great time. But I never get off of that going, oh, I can't wait to see him again. I go, oh, it'll be nice when we get together next time, whenever that is. Like it's so much of a like casual, like, oh, it was great, I could see him. I can't wait to do it again some other time. It wasn't like that lustful, like, oh, like
Pining.
thinking about him all. Yeah, it wasn't. And I love having him as a friend too, because we'll go out to dinner and get like food together and just talk about whatever. And then we'll go back to the house and fuck, and then I'll leave. Like, and it's great. But
yeah,
that's what if you have something like that, that's when you don't have to ask about the boundaries, because you're not in danger.
You already know.
Anything.
Yeah.
It's when you start to ask, are they willing to put in more, that you have to start thinking about boundaries. And that's something I'm still learning myself.
And that's you like paying attention to your own feelings, because ultimately each person is responsible for their own.
You have to be self-aware.
Yeah.
So when
I was like hooking up with a long time ago, I was like, hey, I'm just interested. I'm not looking to date anyone right now. I'm just having some sex. If you're cool with that, that's where I'm at. And they were like, yeah, that's fine. That's totally fine. And then I was getting some signals, I thought, where I felt like they were getting attached. I was like, I'm just going to stop having sex with you. I'm just going to do that.
What did you find that they did that made you feel that they were becoming attached? Or
maybe,
not that what you were doing, but like what they may be doing. I don't want to like put it on you. Just like
maybe they weren't, and I was just like extra worried about it or something. But I don't know, like we'd have sex and like cuddle afterwards, and then like just, I don't know, like tell me how beautiful my eyes were and stuff, which is fine. That's true. But I was like, are you okay? Are you? Yeah. And then one day they were like, man, I wish we could like hang out and like get lunch or something. I was like, oh man, that'd be good. Like I could go for some food. We had a lot of sex. And they were like, yeah, I gotta run an errand, but or else like I would totally like go get like lunch or something. And they were like, oh well, you could go with me. You could go, you could meet my grandma. And I was like, no.
Oh yeah.
Like no. Yeah. I think this was like a you wanting to do a date thing. Yeah. So I just kind of stopped.
So interesting.
Seeing them, and then they were like, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. And I was like, yeah, I'm not really interested in hooking up anymore. And they were like, can I ask why? And I was like, I thought that maybe you were developing feelings, and I didn't want to like.
Yeah, you wanted to set a boundary.
And they were like, no, it was just sex. And I was like, well, okay, cool. I hope so. But still, I made my decision.
And that's fine. You're allowed to make that decision, because I've actually been the person on the other end where someone had stopped having sex with me because they thought I was developing feelings. We've recently reconnected and talked it through, and it's actually gotten back on track of having a better, more healthy relationship than we had before. And I think it's been great, but it required me to develop myself for a couple of years, and I'm much more emotionally mature than I used to be, and I'm still growing to be that person. I hope that person, if it was the case that they were developing it but denying it,
they were also like a couple years younger than me, so I was like, I'm just gonna
if that was the case, and I don't want to
Because I'm not
anything,
sure, but yeah.
I hope that they learn to develop and can find their own path as well.
I hope so.
So Ben, you say that you fall primary. You're prone to fall for people that you fuck if you fuck them a lot.
I can.
Oh.
It depends on the person.
So you said you're getting better at like establishing boundaries. What do you find now so far works for you in terms of setting boundaries? Like if you start to think you're about to fall for someone, like what would you do?
I have found that I actually talk more and more about it with my current relationships and help talk through my thought processes and I kind of help. I use them as a sounding board. So like Anjle was saying earlier, how there's that like, I want to fuck this person. Well, you go ahead. Well, that kind of describes my relationship currently. Like we all know that we hook up with other people and it's completely okay to do that. And like we can talk about it afterwards and describe what we did and all that stuff. And like we support each other, but we're also there for they know that they're happy with how things are currently are, and they know I'm eventually looking to find a partner that supports me the way that those two support each other. So they're always willing to help me talk out through like emotional feelings about who I'm with and whatnot. And I found that having a sounding board more than just keeping it in my head is easier. Okay. I started therapy in the past year, and it's been also a great sounding board.
Yes.
So I recommend therapy for everyone.
Yes, I do too. What was I about to ask? Come on. It literally just went out my head.
It was there.
You said, oh my God, it's going to come back. I promise.
Yeah, that's fine. Is it something with the relationship and like supporting each other or?
Oh, no, that's what it was. Did you tell the person that you were falling for about it ever?
I did. That was probably a mistake, but I did. And it definitely took us apart for a little bit. Eventually we got back to being friends, but I don't think it will ever be what it was. I also realized that it would probably have been more of a unbalanced relationship, even if it like did work. They just were not emotionally there to handle more than one person, and the way they handle the one person already is a little bit difficult. So it's just one of those things that sometimes you feel like you're attracted to people that you can't have more than the ones that you can.
Can either of you hear that? It's just raining very hard suddenly.
Okay. I can kind of hear it.
It's very
okay.
I think if you go on Zoom, there's like a thing in the audio settings that you can like turn all the way up so that we may not have to hear it. I mean, it's not that bad, but there's like a settings. If you go to, let's see, preferences and then audio, and then there's like suppressed background noise. You can
I think
put it on high.
Should be on, but let me see. Put it on to high. Cool.
Yeah. Now I don't hear it.
A little better?
Yeah, okay, I don't hear it. Perfect. So that's very interesting because I was trying to get it from that end because I also like, again, I'm asking these questions. I'm also asking for myself. But I also want to know, because it seems as though there is always a breaking point, at least for a little while, when you realize someone is starting to develop feelings for someone else, whether you are on the receiving side of it or you are like the person that is like falling for whatever. Why do you think? Oh, this is going like real deep, and I don't know if we can get into this without like probably going over time, which I'm completely fine with. But like, why do you think there is always like this, like there's this threshold that doesn't want to be crossed? Like Anjle was saying earlier, they felt that there was someone that was about to like falling for them, and Anjle cut it off, or like say, hey, never mind. And at least on Ben's side, he had someone, and it just didn't work out.
It needed to be cut off.
It needs to be cut off.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because there's a fear of commitment? Is there a fear there? Like, I don't know. I'm trying to like really dig deep into like where that comes from.
Anytime I've done that, it's because like I didn't have any interest in exploring things with that person. And or because I like just knew that I was not interested in that person, like on any level, and didn't want to like encourage it further, or like on in a different area than whatever relationship that we already had. But I did that a little bit when I was like younger, but I'd always feel like weird and guilty because it wasn't like a direct conversation of like, hey, I'm just looking for something casual, or like I'm not interested in anything like romantic or like with you. I'm only interested in like this, or like, oh, I'm only interested in like a weird romantic French time. I'm not interested in sex at all. But like I'd always feel really weird because that wasn't an explicit conversation that I had or that I had felt I could have in the past. I think now I just feel like this is where I'm at. That's the problem. Let me know. Yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't feel good.
Yeah. It makes it, the threshold for when you know you need to cut it off can move based on the people and their emotional availability. And whether or not they're willing to commit to something, or if they feel like they'll be overextending. The word I kept thinking when you were asking the question was overextension of your own feelings. Everyone has a different capacity to love, and everyone has a different capacity for what they for the amount of close relationships that they can have. So people fear the overextension because they're afraid of losing what they currently have that make them happy. In my example, the guy I fell for is married and is in a very happy relationship with his partner. And I never wanted to do anything about that, but I also knew that I had more availability to have like a side boyfriend, but he does not, because that was not built or raised into him. So that was where the boundary and was needed to be set, and that's why it needed to be broken off so that I did not hurt anybody. And sometimes recognizing that you're the one that is in the wrong is hard, but sometimes you just need to take that as it was, learn from it, learn what you can do better to avoid any problems in the future, and move on.
So this is another good question that I have. Does detachment, no, that's not the one. Do you think it's important? No, hold on. No, this is the question. Does detachment from love have to be detachment from romance or intimacy? Like cuddling after or sleeping over, or, like just like doing things beforehand or after?
I don't think so. I sometimes feel like I'm the prince of finding someone and trying to figure out how far we could go as quick as we could go, and just testing the waters, not crossing boundaries, but definitely figuring out where does our comfort level lie, and I want to figure it out as soon as possible so we can get comfortable with each other. I'm not one to slowly dive into something where I slowly explore one thing. I just want to know, because
you're also polyamorous, so it's easy.
Yes.
I feel like it could be, I could be wrong. I mean, I'm the same way, but like, you're not looking. How do I describe this? You're not necessarily looking.
Can be different. Because like you're not necessarily always looking for like a long-term committed relationship. You're like, hey, are we compatible?
That's what I like to figure out. I want to know if we're compatible. And whatever that means from the line of casual relationship to intimate partner, and anywhere on that spectrum, I want to know if we're compatible and where we fall on that line.
Yes.
Yeah. I lost my train of thought.
No, that's okay. No, because from there, like if let's say you are like highly compatible, then like where do you feel like things are. Like, are you more along the lines of like wanting to stay attached to this person because you know you're completely compatible? And compatible in what way? Like,
yeah,
there's a lot of compatibility.
That's when the communication opens.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the communication needs to open, and you need to talk with them about, so yes, we're compatible. What does that mean, and how can we make our compatibility a healthy thing? So I want, there's a person that I met at a recent event that I won a title at, actually, for in the bear and leather community. And there is a guy that I want to keep exploring something with. And we message every day, and it's just like a good morning, good night sort of thing, but it's still it to me feels nice.
Yeah.
So like I want to explore something, and I feel like we're compatible, but we both know that we have multiple people already in our lives. So the one thing that we need to do is that we need to get together and hit that boundary of how compatible are we if we spent a weekend together, and then what does that mean going forward? How often could we do this? How often should we do this? And are we stepping on anybody and making sure that our current relationships are also okay?
Yes. Ooh. Wow. Yeah, I'm literally going through the exact same thing right now. I have several partners, and I just started, I have a new one, and we kind of hit the ground running. And I'm like, I don't want to, like, I wasn't sure if I want to fall in love with this person. So I was like, we need to pump the brakes for now. And that we're in that same window where I'm like, okay, I see we're compatible. We need to slow down, we need to like plan these next interactions out in order for none of us to get hurt, because I don't want to get hurt. I don't want him to get hurt. So
exactly.
Yeah. It's just hard because like you're there and you want more, like, you know, like you can just keep getting more, and like it feels good, and like, and then you have to, like, one of you, or in this instance it was me, that was just like, it hurt my heart that I had to be like, we gotta slow down. I don't want to slow down at all, but like we gotta slow down. It sucks. But funny enough, like I go to therapy 4 days a week, and I was telling one of my therapists about it, and thankfully this therapist is very like, just they have a lot of background in, like, you know, coaching non-monogamous polyamorous couples and stuff, and they gave me a lot of insight, because I was like, I'm in a new relationship energy honeymooning stage right now, and I don't know what to do. Can you help me? And she was just like, well, it looks like you need to do this. And because like I can't see it from my perspective right now.
Yep.
So that's why I'm so happy we had this conversation. I'm so happy that we were able to at least like kind of explore at least our perspectives on what these things are. Now, let me see if there's any other questions here before we wrap up, because shout out to Allison, who is part of the Self-Aware Millennial team, because Allison did a great job of like just kind of getting these questions prepared. There's so many more that we had, and I might just like use them like on the Instagram page to see if people want to like, you know, chime in on some of them, because like these are like just overall just really good. Let's see. Is there a value in trying to be? Ooh. Okay, hold on. Oh wow, no, these are like complicated questions.
I don't know. There was one that I was excited about.
Wait, which one was it? Which one was
it? The one about it's like, are some people on what they think is a journey to detach? But
yes. Okay. I found it. Yeah.
It was a very long.
Let's do this one. No, let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. So the question is, are some people on what they think is a journey to, quote, detach from love, but are really just seeking detachment from toxic or abusive methods of love they have come to expect by their own experience, or have traditionally been taught to believe love looks like? In short, would so many be seeking to detach from love in regards to sex if so many of us hadn't experienced love that involves sex as a mechanism for harm or control? So I gotta get that question. That question is really complex. I don't know how to like make it smaller, but it seems as though it's like people are trying to detach the love that they got, like the abusive love.
Like separate love and sex because
The
their experience of
toxic
love and sex has been unhealthy and
yeah.
bad. Yeah. I think that's been most of my experience.
Gotcha.
It's me like trying to be like, wait, no, that's not it. Okay, wait, let me try it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think there might just like be a larger divide between sex and love just from me like having very intense boundaries that I put there myself that don't have to be there like long term, but that I put there after abusive experiences. Such that like casual sex, I'm just like not has not so far been a problem for me. But for me personally, like it's been a very long journey of like trying to figure out what love means to me and what I want and how I want my relationships to be and how I want to experience relationships, like sexual, like not all, like all relationships. And a lot of like time that I spend like not dating or like having sex, I've still been spending like working on these things by like exploring like things here. I don't know. I'm very weird. Like I'll go to like a play party and I'll just like eat snacks in another room.
Wait, you go to play parties? You gotta invite me. I don't go to play parties, but I want to go.
I don't go to that many, and like they're not. A lot of them are like very.
I know some of them just ain't all that.
I haven't
but, like,
found spaces that's like I'm like, yes, this is for me yet. Like there are some where I'm like, there's elements of this that like is what I'm looking for, but overall, this is not it. And I just don't like maybe it doesn't exist.
it has to
Like
somewhere.
a lot of queer spaces are like great and I feel super comfortable, but like I at least am not aware of other queer people in that queer space being attracted to me as like a femme person who is trans and like doesn't do like I don't know, like old school lesbian Q things. Like I feel like people can get in the headspace of like honing in on things that are familiar to them. And I think that I like maybe exist outside of that to a degree. So I'm not really interacted with in that way.
That's a whole other episode topic.
Yeah. But I definitely have had like better experiences like doing like good experiences doing like drag and burlesque. And there's a burlesque show that is like once a month that's kink and BDSM themed. And like, that's great. Like that feels like it's me at work, but like, like that is what I'm looking for. And I haven't found that really in like kink spaces, but like normally if I do go to a party or something, I'm like, okay, I learned something new about myself and had some snacks and made a cis man give me a foot massage and then I went home. I'm like, that's great. Like I like have a pleasant time, but it's
yeah, I guess even in terms of those types of parties, you're not expected to do anything.
No, and it's weird because I like taking my time and like getting to know people and like having conversations with like different people at different ones that I've been to. So it's not like a familiar-ish thing. So
you're also on you said you're on the asexual spectrum though, right?
Yeah. But like I enjoy sex.
Yeah.
I just, you know, I'm not some of the events I've been to, like people just like start having an orgy right away. And I'm like, I have not even eaten any chips. I'm not ready.
Violated. You walk in, you're like,
I'm like, I was talking to someone and I haven't even finished one glass of wine. Like, slow down.
Yeah.
And then by the time I'm like, yes, I'm ready. Everyone's like, wow, we're so tired. We're gonna go to bed. We're gonna leave. And I'm like, all right, that's fine. But it's been like a lot of like predominantly white spaces, predominantly cis spaces, and predominantly straight spaces. I'm like, whoa. Yeah. I'm like, I'm none of that.
Okay. That's another episode topic I would love to get into, because like that in itself, I'm like very intrigued.
I'm slowly like in different ways learning to have a different relationship with my body outside of I am dating one monogamous person and this is the person I do sex with. Because I don't like that.
I feel that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I could go at length about play spaces and like what they mean in different communities.
Do another episode.
Oh my gosh. And like what they mean in bear versus leather versus kink versus fetish and all that stuff. And it's just,
once we stop recording, I have something to let y'all know about. But
all right, cool. I'm ready.
Okay, well, actually, let's just wrap it up right quick. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Again, this is Anjle and Ben. If y'all want to give your socials in case, you want people to follow you, go right ahead right now.
Yeah, it's Anjle TSC, which is ANJLELATIHAC. It's just that on the internet if you want to find me.
And I don't have public socials, so don't follow me.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, everybody, thank you so much for checking out the Self-Aware Millennial. Just a quick little spiel. If you like this episode, feel free to share it. If you want to support the episodes or support this Patreon, well, if you want to support this Patreon, before I even say what I was going to say, I said that completely wrong. If you want to support the podcast, you can check out our Patreon, www.patreon.com/the-self-aware-millennial. There you'll get free bonus, not free bonus episodes, but you'll get bonus episodes as well as free merch. Why do I keep saying it's free? You're like still kind of sort of paying for it. It's like $5 a month. It's almost like it's free, but you get like exclusive merch. You get merch that people don't have, and all these other wonderful things.
But you pay for it,
right? But also it helps keep this podcast running, because let's be real. COVID has been hard, and I am an entrepreneur now, and I don't know where my next paycheck is coming from. So having just the help of Patreon at least keeps this podcast rolling. So that I'm very thankful for. If you like this podcast, please go check out the Patreon, www.patreon.com/self-aware-millennial. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to another episode of Self-Aware Millennial. I am J.Mix. Again, till next time. Peace. Bye. Okay.
Cue outro music.